former staff of the United States Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. My book, if you go to the next one, well, that's why, well, go back a second. Government can't control Earth's climate. That's the subheading, but my book is Green Fraud. Go forward. It was released just this year, and it details the entire climate agenda. And I got to tell you, it's not about controlling the climate so much as it's about controlling you. And I mean the citizens of Pennsylvania. Let's go forward 2 slides, one more. Okay. USA has a friend in Pennsylvania. Now, this is what I believe that we should be, instead of trying to slowly begin the death of 1,000 cuts to Pennsylvania's fracking energy miracle that is the envy of the world, I believe that we should be praising it. Now, the U.S. Energy Information Agency, the United States, as of 2019, has returned to a position of energy dominance for the first time since the 1950s. The last time the U.S. energy production exceeded consumption was when Dwight David Eisenhower was president, and the last time our energy exports exceeded energy imports was when Harry S. Truman was president. The U.S. has been doing all this while leading the world in CO2 reductions. We blew out all of the European nations who wagged their finger because we had withdrawn from the UN Paris Agreement. This is the nonsense. And the same U.S. Energy Information in 2010 did their predictions of the energy, and they were completely wrong. They predicted carbon dioxide emissions would go up. They predicted fracking or natural gas would be stable. What actually happened between 2010 and 2019, quote, blew up energy predictions, according to an Axio analysis. In fact, CO2 emissions dropped. Now, the paper, The Investor's Business Daily, had a great idea. If the Nobel Prize Committee really wanted to reward those who did the most to reduce greenhouse gases, they would withdraw Al Gore and the UN IPCC's Nobel Prize and give it to the United States fracking industry for fracking replacing coal. So if you are concerned about CO2, you would do that. That would have many benefits, by the way. For one thing, we would have Michael Mann of Penn State can stop falsely claiming to be a Nobel laureate because the Nobel Prize would go to Pennsylvania. Go back one. So I am here to say today at this hearing, thanks Pennsylvania. The shale fracking natural gas revolution, the U.S. now leads the world in both oil and natural gas production. I think it's worth a round of applause for Pennsylvania. This is the bottom line. Go forward too. Why would we now look at Pennsylvania, which is the envy of the world, and have Governor Wolf come in, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and want to be a wannabe planet saver and throw that out, start this death of 1,000 cuts? So instead of championing the energy, RGGI, the Green New Deal, the UN Paris Agreement are now going to start throwing this awesome legacy into the ash bin of history. Climate reality. This is one of my favorite quotes for the layperson. UK professor and scientist Philip Stott. Climate change governed by hundreds of factors or variables. The idea that we can manage it predictably by understanding and manipulating at the margins one politically selected factor is as misguided as it gets. It's scientific nonsense. Yet that is what RGGI is based upon. That is what they believe, that some government can somehow regulate one of the hundreds of factors of climate and come up with a predictable future and save our climate. Next. These are some of the past predictions. We heard a lot about the models, the extreme scenarios. Well, in 1970, Paul Ehrlich, the famous overpopulation guru, predicted that 4 billion people, 65 million Americans, would perish in the Great Die-Off. Let's see a show of hands in this room. How many survived the Great Die-Off that Paul Ehrlich predicted? Okay, look, maybe a couple of them didn't. I didn't see a couple hands go up. In 2006, Al Gore warned of 10 years. 2019, Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal advocate, warned of 12 years. This is their failed predictions of the past and future. Controlling carbon is a bureaucrat's dream. If you control carbon, you control life. That's from MIT scientist Dr. Richard Lindzen. Well, what does he mean by that? Let's go forward. The UN IPCC co-chair of the working group, Otmar Edenhofer, admitted the UN redistributes the de facto the world's wealth. One has to free oneself from the illusion that climate policy is environmental policy. They have almost nothing to do with it anymore. And I could say you could put the word RGGI in that same category. With all of these ridiculous auctions and trading schemes that the general public would never understand, they will understand higher energy bills, and they will understand that it will not have any impact not only on the climate but on CO2 emissions globally. The wacky world of climate. I come from Washington, D.C. I'm going to give you an update on what Pennsylvania is wading into if they allow Governor Wolf to get them into this climate agenda through RGGI. The new ways we used to measure climate used to be, sea level and carbon dioxide just 15 years ago when Al Gore's film. But here's some updates. Toxic masculinity as the reason for climate change. Is RGGI going to deal with toxic masculinity? Next. NASA scientists, lead scientists, and other scientists, Peter Kumar from NASA, now linking climate change to white supremacy. We'll never head off a climate catastrophe without dismantling white supremacy. This is what NASA says is causing climate change now. How does RGGI deal with white supremacy? It's an incomplete program, according to NASA, unless it does. Cancel pet ownership. Hey, we don't need RGGI. We need people to give up cats and dogs. This is now, according to Vox magazine, and scientists and professors in academia, and they're never wrong, of course. We need to reduce the rate of dog and cat ownership because they're bad carbon footprints for the planet. Vogue. Anyone here have children, grandchildren? Well, guess what? Vogue magazine, having a baby, pure environmental vandalism. Does RGGI deal with the environmental vandalism of having kids? It's an incomplete program. Next. Andrew Yang, how many here own an internal combustion car? Well, part of the climate agenda is abolishing private car ownership. One of the leading Democratic candidates, probably the next mayor of New York City, is proposing abolishing private car ownership and instead offering people a rental fleet of roving electric cars. That's the future you go when you start going down the nonsensical climate agenda. Global warming causes more crime. Does RGGI deal with how to reduce crime? Continue. Lowering crime also causes more global warming. This is the New York Times. Lowering crime could contribute to global warming. Keep going. Inmates consume less than the average citizen, so fewer prisoners mean higher overall energy consumption. In other words, if you lock people up, you have lower carbon emissions for them, carbon dioxide emissions. So you go next. So if global warming causes more crime, as we've been assured by United Nations scientists, reducing crime causes more global warming. Next. And what's the solution then? The new current pet theories out of Washington and the country, defunding the police is a climate solution. So unless RGGI deals with defunding the police, it's an incomplete solution. Next. There's no Green New Deal without police abolition. This is another Green New Deal advocate. So not only do we have to defund, we have to abolish the police in order to solve climate change. If you disagree with any of this, you are a climate denier and belong in jail. How do we know this? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants climate deniers, what he calls them, at The Hague with all the other war criminals. Bill Nye is open to jailing climate skeptics for impeding progress on climate change. Next. We've redefined the evidence. No longer do we look at temperature, polar bears, sea level. Now we look at airline turbulence, rape statistics, crime statistics, vehicle theft, train derailments, police shootings, toxic masculinity. This is the wacky world of climate which Pennsylvania may be about to enter if they allow this Governor Wolf to have his way in RGGI. Climate lockdowns. How many people in Pennsylvania thought maybe Governor Wolf was a little overbearing with lockdowns? Well, let's see what's going on. Why would I mention lockdowns here? What's going on? Next. We're flattening the coronavirus curve. This is the Washington Post. We can flatten the climate curve. Next. If we shut down the world to stop a virus, it's also possible to do the same for climate. This is Vogue magazine, Teen Vogue magazine. This is what the climate activists, everyone from Al Gore to John Kerry to UN officials, all praised the COVID lockdowns as great for the planet because they lowered CO2 emissions 7% in the year 2020. Next. I don't say this in a partisan way, but the parallels between COVID-19 and climate change are screaming at us, both positive and negative. You could just as easily replace the words climate with COVID-19. That's our climate envoy, John Kerry, in April 2020. Net zero. Lots of talk of a climate agenda about net zero. It's like a lockdown, but permanent. Theoretically, the lockdowns for COVID end. Climate lockdowns will not end. The pandemic, Time magazine, remade every corner of society. Now it's climate's turn. So unless RGGI has a way to try to morph this, unless they deal with this issue of how the climate activists want to follow the model of COVID lockdowns, this is, again, an incomplete program. Next. Climate lockdowns, equivalent of a COVID emission drop needed every 2 years. This is what the United Nations has said in order to meet it. What the COVID lockdowns did was actually in line with what the United Nations demanded of global emissions. So the question is, are we prepared to go down that path of a COVID-style lockdown? Next. Senator Chuck Schumer in New York is urging Biden to declare a climate emergency. Very similar if you're thinking about all the COVID emergency declarations by blue state governors like Governor Wolf. Next. Climate death tolls. They're talking now about adding climate change to death certificates. Academics in Australia. Next. That's a mock certificate of death. Next. Federal government has already looked at whether global warming will cause more deadly car crashes. Next. The new study, American Cancer Society, climate change is increasing your cancer risk. Next. Gore's health warning, every organ of your body can be affected by climate change. Next. If you die from cancer, a car accident, or organ failure, you could be listed as a climate change death. That's the absurdity in which our world is headed, and Pennsylvania is about to dive in head first. Next. The reality, of course, destroys this. After 100 years of climate-related deaths, they're approaching zero, a 99% drop since 1920. There's the chart. This was a peer-reviewed study and data that came out earlier. I think it was late last year. Next. So the solutions. The era of constant electricity at home is ending. Look to Europe. In my book, Green Fraud, I have a whole chapter on what Pennsylvania can expect if they go down this route. Families will only have power when it's available. Next page. And you're going to have chillier homes, particularly in winter, require personal changes. Home radiators will have to be 10 degrees cooler. This is their Green New Deal. This is their version of the beginning of RGGI in Europe. Next. So Governor Wolf is bragging that funds brought through RGGI will allow us to make targeted investments to support communities affected by the energy transmission. Next. But the ridiculousness of this is he is going to be harming the programs. The targeted investments are going to go to workers that RGGI is going to help put out of business as it starts raising the cost and trying to shut down industries. Politicians will force unnecessary unemployment and then portray themselves as the heroes. Next. So Governor Wolf's claim of supporting workers is akin to saving someone from a sinking ship after they were the ones who put holes in the boat to ensure that it sank. Next. Pennsylvania is ground zero for this. There's a warning here of all the different outside groups and inside groups funding, trying to get this climate agenda imposed and radically transform Pennsylvania. There's some of the groups. Next, go ahead. And I'm wrapping up here. The climate futility. There is no climate crisis, no climate emergency. If we actually faced one and we had to rely on RGGI or Green New Deal or UN Paris, we would literally be doomed. And if we actually did face a climate emergency or crisis, you'd want to do the opposite. You would want to have no planned mandates, no auction programs, no administrative state inside baseball terminology of people deciding who gets auctions and what price and who gets subsidies and who does. We would want to promote economic growth, prosperity, innovation, technological advancement. So next, let's throw all of this out. Here's what's happened with all of the previous climate pacts, beginning with Rio. Carbon dioxide has had a complete steady increase regardless of all the alleged solutions. Next. Keep fossil fuels in the ground. That's what advocates claim. Pennsylvania has been doing it right. Keep your independence. They should keep RGGI in the ground. Permanently bury RGGI's cap and trade regulations. Thank you. And there's Governor Wolf at the door. Reject Governor Wolf. Reject RGGI. Reject this whole idea. Celebrate Pennsylvania leading the world in energy, not only independence, but dominance. Next. Thank you very much. That's my book, Green Fraud. And next, CFACT.org is my parent company. And next, that's how you reach me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morano.